Twilio live streams a coding session from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Jason imagines a dystopian future where nobody ever walks anywhere anymore. How Airbnb gets around the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and your smartphone might be making you blind. All that and a whole lot more coming up on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1541, recorded Thursday, June 23rd, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Tracker, a coin-sized tracking device that pairs with your smartphone and keeps you from losing your most valued possessions. Visit thetracker.com right now and enter promo code TNT for 30% off your entire order.
And by Atlassian. Unleash your team's potential with collaborative software tools like HipChat and Jira, which will enable you to work and communicate better together. Visit Atlassian.com to learn more.
Welcome to Tech News Today, the show where we talk about all the things you need to know today about technology. I'm Megan Morrone.
I'm Jason Howell. Sometimes the things you need to know today, you'll find out tomorrow when you watch or listen today's show. We don't care. Just watch or listen. 1541. When I was saying that episode number, I realized why this is such a special episode. 1541 is the drive for the Commodore 64 that I had when I was a kid.
Oh.
I know, exactly. Pretty special, huh?
That is. I thought it was going to be some sort of historical date, but it is.
No, it kind of is. In my life, the 1541 drive is pretty historical and special. Mm-hmm. I realize that probably to no one else it is, but it's got a place in my heart.
Well, then it has a place in all of our hearts.
It does now. Sorry about that.
Should we get started?
Yeah.
Well, the first U.S. venture-backed tech IPO rose 92% today in its inaugural day of trading. Twilio is a cloud-based software system that helps developers add voice and text functions to apps. The company itself might be unfamiliar to you, but Twilio's clients include household names like Uber and Airbnb, and an sure sign that geeks have finally risen to the position of power that they so deserve. Twilio developers left their hoodies at home for the day and took to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in their business attire and did a live coding session as their CEO rang the opening bell. So this is good news.
I love that. I even though it's totally a marketing ploy, but it's IPO, so of course you're going to market around that. But I love what they did because they roped a 35-year veteran trader into this, and essentially by the end, that person wrote their very first app, and it ran. And I don't know, it's just a great example of kind of what Twilio is kind of all about at its core. They're an API, kind of code company. Like, it's really hard to be a company like that and get people excited about it. But witnessing that, seeing how empowering it can be to create something from scratch like that with someone who's never done it before, that's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier this week with Alex Wilhelm. Like, there's been an IPO drought, and so everyone was sort of looking at this and are excited about how well it did, how well Twilio did. I mean, it's just their first day. But we were joking that, now is the time where you can... It's better to not exactly know, for the average person to not understand what a company does. Like, they're going to probably do better in this market than before, when it was, 10 years ago, when it was sock puppets, and, just recently when it was like delivering, my food to my door.
That was also 10 years ago, too. With Webvan, I think it was, and there were a few others.
I guess delivering not my groceries, but my, my food, that's already made. We couldn't even bear to get groceries, but
your takeout, whatever.
Right, exactly. I can't even think of the companies that do this.
Eat24, I think, is one of them, or Grubhub.
Right.
I don't know.
Grubhub, those kinds of things.
Apparently there's some concerns for its growth, though, or at least there has been, although you wouldn't see it in kind of the way that the stock jumped today, its performance. But another client is WhatsApp. They apparently accounted for 17% of Twilio's revenue last year. And when you kind of consider that, if WhatsApp ever hits a point to where it just doesn't need it anymore, bam, 17% of its revenue gone. That's a pretty significant drop off based on one client going away. But yeah, I mean, isn't it kind of that way with everything? I think maybe though the difference here is kind of the balance. If one company is funding, giving you 17% of your revenue, that's a major drop if they happen to not need you anymore.
Exactly.
So
Spoon Rocket, I think, was the one that Alex was talking about, which just, did not deliver spoons.
or rockets, really, which is very unfortunate because rockets are delicious. MIT Technology Review discovered earlier this week that Apple's iOS 10 beta had an unencrypted kernel. Of course, in light of how protective Apple has become when it comes to securing its products, the question was whether Apple intended to do this or if, in fact, it was a mistake. After all, exposing the kernel is kind of like lifting the veil, and Apple hasn't been one to do that when it comes to the underlying architecture of its OSs. In this case, it turns out it was intentional. An Apple spokesperson told TechCrunch that the kernel cache contains no user information, so consumer security wasn't hindered by this. As well, by leaving the kernel unencrypted, Apple says it can optimize system performance along with still, again, protecting that user data. And I guess basically leaving it unencrypted can help just general users and not just people inside Apple to do things like, find and report flaws in the OS. But I mean, that also kind of leaves it exposed, I suppose, to some degree for some sort of exploit on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the rumors are, that, it is exposed. It's easier for jailbreakers, that sort of thing. But I think, and no one's proven that so far. Jonathan Zdarsky wrote that he presumes they're doing this to give less power to those secret companies, like the one that cracked open the iPhone from the San Bernardino shooter. So, those companies had a lot of power, and if they unencrypt the kernel, he suspects that might be less power for those secret companies that are willing to do this sort of thing.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's actually a really great point. And as far as user data is concerned, I mean, going forward, at least on iOS with, the secure enclave, because that's just always a lot of fun to say.
It's been so long since
I know.
said secure
It really
enclave.
feels like an old friend at this point. But, that's another layer of security, layer of protection for the user. So, maybe in that case, it makes sense to be able to kind of open up the other things and reap the benefits from that.
So another one of those, we meant to do it, guys. This wasn't a mistake.
It's a feature.
Well, there were more announcements from VidCon today. Today from Facebook's video team. TechCrunch says you can now do remote interviews on Facebook Live by broadcasting from 2 different locations. Your viewers will now have a place also to wait while you prepare your broadcast. Facebook's Live's waiting rooms will notify fans of an upcoming live stream and let them virtually hang out in a room with others to wait for the stream to start. This allows content creators to delay broadcasts until enough people join, which theoretically should keep viewers from getting bored and leaving before the broadcast starts. I'm not sure what goes on in those rooms, but if it's not virtual snacks, I'm not sticking around. This is my favorite Facebook announcement from VidCon. Their third announcement is the new ability to use Masquerade or MSQRD. Those are those masks that look like the Facebook lenses or Snapchat lenses. So this will be like streaming yourself, trying on all the lenses, and then broadcasting with one of them on your face. So that's exciting. And I think, I don't know, I guess if maybe someone is embarrassed to live stream, they could put on a panda face.
They can obscure themselves.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea, or just more entertaining.
I think it's more entertaining. Actually, a lot of these announcements, I think they're great, by the way. I think this is, Facebook's doing some really good things for the platform to get people excited about it, opening it up like this, allowing more people in. But a lot of it really reminds me of Hangouts on Air, which has been around for a few years now. But they're very good features, like the Masquerade filter features, for example. Like I remember when Hangouts, or maybe it was just Google Plus, when Hangouts was part of Google Plus. But when it first kind of came out and you could do that and you could do group video chat, you could do very much this sort of thing. You could put on, like a halo or buggy eyes or whatever. And this, I think if you scroll down, you can see this. So in your Hangouts, you could throw these masks on, and it just kind of made the kind of group chat a little more fun, right?
Really? When was this?
This was like back in 2012.
That's crazy.
And, you know, I did that with my friends. I have friends, you know, kind of in all different places all over the world. And we had a couple of those big group hangouts. And we just start throwing these things on. And next thing you know, it's like 25 minutes later and you're laughing, you know, hysterically because it's just, I don't know, it's different. They weren't as polished as they are now. But, you know, very similar.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. It's just a good time. Not everything has to be super serious. But these improvements, like the waiting rooms, the broadcast with a friend, that sort of stuff, great for podcasting, great for actually running shows. People do that all the time with Hangouts on Air, and then they end up archiving that audio and releasing it as a podcast. And I think that's great. That gets even more creators interested in the platform.
Right, exactly. As a viewer, when you watch a live stream and you're just sitting around and you're watching the person streaming, like kind of looking at the count, like are there enough people? And I've been there, and I'm just like, what about me? I'm not enough, you know. And then I've literally left because I'm just like, you're not talking about anything. You're just waiting to see if all the cool people are going to show up, and this one's leaving. You know, so I think this will be a good idea, but I'm not exactly sure what happens in those waiting rooms. Like, what's going to keep me there?
I don't know. I mean, the way that's worked on Hangouts, for example, is that it just kind of says it will begin shortly, and you just kind of hang out. And if there's chat embedded, and I can't remember with Facebook Live, I think you've got the comment kind of stream underneath or whatever, but you can engage with that and while you're hanging out and waiting. So I'm sure it'll be pretty similar in this regard. I am a sucker for Boston Dynamics robots. So when they show off a new robot, like the Spot Mini quadruped, I can't help but watch. And usually it frightens me about as much as it wows me. We have video of the Spot Mini. It's about the size of a large dog, about 2 feet tall, has a neck like a little giraffe when it extends out. Is that the Spot Mini, maybe? Yeah, the neck isn't extended at this point. It's just like a headless dog at that point, which is kind of creepy in its own right. So you can see actually, you won't notice this. It's an electric robot. It's a mini-me to their big dog lineup of robot animal things. And so electric instead of hydraulic, that makes it the quietest robot out of Boston Dynamics to date. And as you can see here, it's in a house because it's meant to be your house pet that helps with things like cracking eggs and throwing the trash into the garbage heap outside.
Cleaning the food off the floor under the table like all dogs.
That would be nice. Yes, it needs a... There you go. Yeah. Now you've got the neck. This thing is nuts.
I think they call it an arm. Like, because they said it's 10 more pounds with the arm.
Wow.
So...
with Boston Dynamics robots, like, I can't not watch.
Here's the best part. Like, it's picking up a glass out of the sink, putting it in the dishwasher.
Thank you.
Then thank you. All the things we hate to do. The recycling.
It really needs some sound effects. That's what I was wondering with this thing. Like, it's all electric, right? And with electric cars, sometimes they build in car noise. Part.
We got to watch it. Oh, it's the obligatory slipping on the banana peel.
Jump
and
up.
Then
get yourself up. Yeah, it gets itself right back up. I want one of these cute little guys in my house.
This is not a real house. If you're watching, you can see the stairway is just like so messed up. But like this is like the robot training house.
Yeah, this is a robot house.
There's a lot. You can see like how messed up the staircase is. Like they've been working on this for a really long time.
Oh, man.
And you know, now that I learned yesterday that you can speed up YouTube videos, like I just watched this sped up, which made it so much more exciting. So
that's the future, actually. This is where we are right now, moving at normal speed.
Yeah.
They're going to perfect it. And these things are going to be like 3 times as fast as us, if not faster. And then that's going to be really crazy. That's a crazy future to live in. But I guess it's 55 pounds compared to Alpha Dog's 240 pounds. So it's light. You can almost put it in your pocket, you know?
Weighs about half the weight of my actual dog. So that's good.
Right. Exactly.
Looks like you can probably train it better. Yeah. Can you teach it ethics? I don't know.
I don't know.
That is the question of our next story. Now, given the opportunity to sacrifice their own needs for someone else's, most people will choose to stay alive. Now, what does that mean? That's computer scientists and researchers found and reported this in this week's Science magazine. The study was conducted in relation to programming self-driving cars. Writing about the results in the New York Times, John Markoff says that we've been struggling with the moral problems of who to save in an emergency since humans began struggling with moral problems. But now those problems and the solutions to them need to be programmed into our future autonomous vehicles. Now, these studies are some of the first that ask people not what they think is morally right, but what they want. The surveys presented different situations with a different number of random pedestrians that could be saved versus saving yourself or saving a family member. Participants were also asked whether they wanted to accept government regulation over these sorts of algorithmic life-saving decisions. Most do not, not surprisingly. So this is so fascinating. We already make these decisions all the time.
Snap decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and, snap decisions and not also snap decisions. When we were talking about the, moral responsibility in developing the self-driving car, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I brought up the point when you buy a big car, when you buy an SUV, you're essentially making the choice, my safety is more important than, a pedestrian safety, because that's what you're saying. You're buying a big, safe car, but if you hit a pedestrian with that big, safe car, it's going to do more damage than if you hit it with a small car. I mean, so we've been making these decisions. We just don't like to think about it very much.
And we don't like to admit it
right.
either. I mean, you might not be buying that big vehicle because you will win and the pedestrian will die. You might be buying it because it's the size that you need to fit your family in or whatever. But
right, so that's a decision for you. It's not for everyone else.
Well,
and
yes,
it's not
you're
for the
right.
environment
You're making
also.
a very selfish.
It is a selfish decision, but you don't really think about it. It's never advertised in that way.
Right, man. Programming for death is exactly what people fear about robots, right? Giving a robot or a machine the power, the ability to decide who lives and who dies. More and more, and I think I said this the other week when we had the guest on talking about this, more and more, I don't know if we can pull this off. Like, I don't know if there's ever a right answer or a good enough answer that everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah. Like in the case of this study shows the majority of people feel that the passenger should be sacrificed over a pedestrian that happens to be out on the street. Who on earth is going to buy a car where they know that they are the one that is going to be sacrificed? Like, I don't know that anyone is going to choose that. Mm-hmm. They think that if they're putting a lot of money into something or choosing to ride with something, if it happens to be, a service where you don't own, but you choose to, ride as a passenger or whatever, like, you're not going to choose the thing that's going to sacrifice you. No one would do that.
Well, you're not going to choose it when given the choice and having time to think about it. But I mean, you always hear stories of people who run back into burning buildings, people who sacrifice their lives. They're not just like, do I want to die in order to save these strangers when I might be leaving my children without a mother or father? Like, no, you would say no. But people don't. I mean, it's a split decision. It's like, I'm going to do it. It's the way we're built. Some people, I guess, and some people not, to just run back into that burning building. But that's not the same as these thought out decisions or someone programming it. And I think, you say like, I don't think we're going to get there. We'll get there. Like, whether or not we want to accept it as how these cars are programmed will be or whether we just be like, okay, well, I guess it's programmed to do something. I don't want to know.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the question is, will people know how it's programmed, or will we reach a point where it's like, if we're going to do this, people have to not know how it's being decided? But that's a lot of power to put in somebody's hands. Whose hands does that power go into? Does it go into the government to regulate? Probably, and to some degree. Does it go into the manufacturer? I don't want a manufacturer deciding who lives and who dies. That's where I have a hard time understanding how we ever get to a point where everyone is cool with the decision that's being made about it. Mm-hmm. Because split decision, based on pure adrenaline, based on a situation that just suddenly happens in front of you, everybody understands that because beep happens, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it happens out of nowhere, and you do what you can. But thinking about the ethics in advance and then choosing to spend your money into something, not, either not knowing how or who it's going to sacrifice, or knowing that's an entirely different scenario. And I don't know that anybody's ever going to feel okay with that. I almost feel like if we're going to do this, we have to eliminate the transitional period where there's a mixture of driving and self-driving cars where there's pedestrians on the side of the road, and we need to jump and this is impossible. We need to jump immediately to the point to where the infrastructure is built up, where everybody is in an autonomous vehicle, and there are these totally, regulated, thought out, planned paths for everything, and that there are no accidents because it's all programmed, and that's impossible.
Well, that means no pedestrians either?
Yes, because I'm talking about flying cars, okay? Put it up in the air. This is what we need to jump to next. Let's get away from all this autonomous vehicle stuff.
That's a really dystopian world. You're like, no more pedestrians. If we just get rid of the pedestrians, no one walks anywhere.
Pedestrians have to go somewhere different.
Okay.
I'm not saying this is possible. I'm just saying maybe this should be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation that I think we'll probably be having many more times.
I agree.
Bigger minds need to solve this. So please go solve it.
Because you don't like my solution.
I don't like your no more walking around solution. No, I'm not willing to accept that.
All right, fine.
Well, last year, Harvard researchers found that it was harder to find a room to rent on Airbnb if you had an African-American sounding name. We will follow up on that case and what others have vowed to do about it with Charles Pulliam-Moore from Fusion. But first, let's take a minute to thank Tracker, the sponsor of this episode. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. Have you ever been taught to put things back, just put it back in the same place every time so you'll remember where it is? Well, that's all well and good, but how do you remember how to do that? With Tracker, you don't have to. The coin-sized device locates misplaced keys, wallets, computers, even pets in seconds. The Tracker Bravo is constructed with anodized aluminum for the thinnest and most durable tracking. Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth Low Energy, so the battery lasts up to 1 year. You can also purchase a water-resistant case, which is perfect for your pet's collars. Pair Tracker to your iOS or Android device, attach it to anything via key loop or adhesive, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. It's just that easy. Customize two-way separation alerts to receive notifications before you leave your item behind. If you lose your phone, press the button on Tracker and your phone rings, even when it's on silent. With over 1.5 million devices, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world, so your lost item shows up on a map, even if it's miles away. If an item goes missing, the Tracker app records its last known location on a map. When another Tracker user comes within a 100-foot range of your lost item, you'll receive a GPS update of where your item is. Tracker recently introduced Tracker Atlas, which works with your Tracker Bravo or your third-party Bluetooth tracker to pinpoint your items on a customizable floor plan of your home. Save time and energy by simply asking Tracker Atlas where your item is, and you will instantly get an answer. No need to search. Go to thetracker.com and never lose your possessions again. Plus, just for our audience, if you enter promo code TNT, you'll get 30% off your entire order. That's TheTracker.com, promo code TNT for 30% off your entire Tracker order.
All right, so Airbnb has had a hard time when it comes to making all of its users feel welcome. In fact, if you do a search on Twitter for hashtag Airbnb while black, you'll be pummeled by story after story of Airbnb hosts canceling the reservation request of someone who is likely nothing more than not white. Joining us to talk about this is Charles Pulliam-Moore, writer for Fusion. How's it going, Charles?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Jason?
Doing great. It's great to get you back here. Tell us a little bit about how Airbnb has kind of gained its reputation for not being welcome to minorities, to blacks who are trying to use the service.
So a couple of months ago, a lot of Black Airbnb users took to Twitter with the hashtag Airbnb while black to sort of share their experiences with the service. And what people sort of quickly recognized was that there was a pattern, right, that was sort of pretty standard throughout everyone's different story. So it's usually a person is looking to go somewhere, they log on to Airbnb looking for a spot. They find somewhere that is available within the time frame that they're looking to be in that particular location. They book it, the booking goes through, everything is sort of set. But then within a couple of hours, they get a cancellation from the owner of the location. And the reasons why were pretty much always like, oh, I haven't updated my my availability calendar in so long, I'm sorry, which is a valid thing, If you aren't like a frequent renter through Airbnb, there's a chance that, your plans can change and you're not necessarily on your calendar all the time. But what people sort of quickly found out was that was pretty much like the standard script. Like, oh, I didn't update my calendar on time. My bad. And it happens so often that people eventually, ask their white friends like, hey, will you try booking this for me just to see, just to see if the booking goes through? And as luck would have it, a lot of people saw that the bookings went through without any kind of hitch.
That's a challenge, to say the least. What's someone's recourse if they feel that their reservation's being treated this way? Or do they have any?
So technically speaking, all you can really do is report it to Airbnb. You can say, hey, you guys, this thing happened. I got turned away, and I sort of followed up with a white friend of mine, and they seem to get it. And so there seems to be some kind of conflict going on. But Airbnb has taken the position with a number of users that says that unless there is a specific instance in which the renter or the Airbnb user has explicitly said something discriminatory against you, and you can prove it, you don't really have that much ground to stand on. So Airbnb, when pushed, will talk about specific instances where they've gone after users who have been discriminatory. There are 2 users in particular, one who discriminated against a Black man by, calling him epithets, and another trans woman whom was very obviously discriminated against, again, like explicitly. Airbnb will hold those 2 up as sort of being emblematic of their stance on discrimination, but that sort of doesn't really deal with the way that harassment online works, right? It's not always so black and white, for lack of a better term.
Well, so, the Civil Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, says you can't discriminate against race for any public accommodation, including hotels.
Yeah.
So why isn't Airbnb held to this same standard?
So again, like I said, it's really difficult to prove discrimination all the time. It's not always, there's so many steps that you have to take to sort of establish, no, this is the reason that I was turned away, right? And then even still, it becomes sort of like an I said, they said, right? But then there's this added layer to it where Airbnb users, when they sign up for the service, a part of the terms and conditions says that you are barred from entering into a class action lawsuit should any issues arise. And if you look back historically, in instances where there's been sort of like institutional discrimination against women, people of color, people of various religious backgrounds, people of various gender expression, it's always been through class action lawsuits that people have been able to get legal recourse because it's so. One of the pernicious things about institutional discrimination is that it doesn't always manifest itself in the same exact form, right? So someone may call you a name, someone may turn you away. Some people, it could be something as simple as I signed up for your Airbnb, and when I got there, you left it, in a state of ridiculous disarray that would make me not want to stay there. All 3 of those are instances, or could be instances, of discrimination, but because people aren't allowed to sort of pool their experiences and present them to a judge, it makes it much more difficult for people to sort of make a solid case for themselves.
It's one of those moments where, the sharing economy, which is a dumb name for it, it's not.
We're sharing. I'm paying you to share.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And they're not very good at sharing. But, we look at it and we think, oh, this is so great. I don't have to stay in a hotel. Where everything's free and not free, but, we're just doing this our own way. But then these regulations that have been in place are no longer in place. And we see it again and again, with Uber and with so many of these new companies. And so what do you make of that?
It's sort of, we always talk about disruption disruption has become a sexy word in the Valley, right? It's I'm doing something different, which is true. But with disruption, it's not just necessarily a disruption of the business model. It's a disruption of some of the legal protections, the social mores that have been put in place, over decades, because these problems aren't new. It's not so long ago that, Black people just weren't allowed certain places. Through a number of court battles, we were able to sort of put sanctions in place that made it, that made that illegal and discouraged people from it. But we always talk about how, startup culture is the Wild West. And this is an instance of how that can be problematic at times. Because when people have pushed back against Airbnb, and they're very resolute that what they're doing is the right thing, right? That idea of, or rather that provision of barring people from being able to file class actions, that is sort of de rigueur in the Valley, not necessarily just for users, but for employees, right? Just sort of it has sort of become a standard. And so there's this clashing of ideologies where it's on the one hand, you have Valley types who feel as if, this is our culture, this is how we do business. And on the other hand, you have the public being nah, this is not great. This, causes harms upon people.
So then, kind of moving from there, where Airbnb has kind of failed, Phoenix rises out of the ashes with inclusivity in mind. Tell us about Rohan Gilks and his business Inclusive.
Yeah, so Rohan actually wrote a piece for Fusion about his experiences with Airbnb. He had a very traditional Airbnb while black story, was looking to go rent out a cabin in a pretty white area, got denied. But rather than just sort of like taking to Twitter and expressing his outrage, he's like, well, like, let's build something, like, let's build an alternative. Initially, it was called Noir BNB with a focus on like bringing black people into the fold. But in a recent conversation I had with him, he's like, no, I've gotten so many letters from people of various backgrounds. It's not just ethnic discrimination. It's not just racial discrimination. It's also people being discriminated against based on their gender expression. And so Noir BNB evolved into Inclusive with two N's, cute little pun. And the way that he explained it to me, it's basically just like Airbnb, right? Except that it has protections built in place that penalize users that sort of engage in the kind of discriminatory behavior that you've seen on Airbnb. So on Airbnb, right, I can list this office space as being rentable, right? I say it's available on X date. You try to book it for X date, and then I can say, oh no, something's happened. Family emergency, I didn't update my calendar, what have you. That's completely legit, right? Things happen. But what Inclusive will do is that it puts a freeze on that location, right? It says that if you actually had a legitimate reason as to why that space is no longer available, you probably don't need to be renting it out, right? It's not, an unfairly long amount of time, but it's just enough to say that, listen, if you, cancel this booking because you don't like the person that tried to book it, you really shouldn't be on our platform. And it's those kinds of protections that I feel like Airbnb should learn from, because it's not going out of its way to do the heavy duty work of scouring. It's not going to go into people's private communications. It's not going to go into their profiles and scan everything. It really is just creating a culture that discourages that kind of discrimination.
Yeah, creating a layer that would hopefully, have someone think twice about doing that. Correct. Versus just it being wide open and there being no restrictions. Speaking of restrictions, are there any restrictions for who can use Inclusive, or is it still open to everyone?
No, in our conversation, Morrone was telling me, initially we were really marketing this heavily towards Black people. But he's like, no, there are a lot of stories about people who are completely down with the cause. I'm open to having anyone here. Mm-hmm. So Inclusive isn't necessarily just about racial inclusion. It's just about inclusion overall. Home sharing, sharing is a part of the name, we want to make this something that is accessible to all people, which is really cool.
Cool. When is this launching? Because I know it hasn't launched publicly yet, right?
No, it's currently in beta. You can sign up for an invite now. Last I spoke with her, and it's actually launching within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So if you sign up for the notification, you will be one of the first to find out about, everything is going to go live.
Excellent. INN. Inclusive.
INN, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Charles Pulliam-Moore, it's always a pleasure getting you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us once again. Tell people where they can follow all your work online.
You can find me on Twitter. Twitter is the best place to find me. I am at Charles Pulliam, Pulliam. I tweet often, frequently. Tweets are good. Come through.
I enjoy your tweets.
There we go. Thanks again, Charles. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Right. Have a good night.
Well, thanks to everyone who wrote in about your moral and ethical feelings about speeding up media online. We have a few of your responses. Raymond Dirk from Mountain View confesses, I do consume a lot of media sped up. I'm an longtime viewer of All About Android and This Week in Google, so I will never give up my Nexus. But I did buy an iPhone to do this. In the accessibility settings on iOS, you can enable a 2-finger swipe down to read any page aloud. I can listen to Samantha read the content in Chrome at 2 times the speed, which turns anything into a podcast. I hate having 2 phones on me, but I do hope Google will enable a better version of this on Android because TalkBack is really hard to use.
Yeah, TalkBack can be a little challenging in that regard. Dan from Jacksonville, Florida, who is at Vogie on Twitter, says he listens to over 50 podcasts over the course of the week. He says, I find that the large portion of podcasters enunciate crisply, but the conversations start to drag. It started slow, but now my mind adapts and podcasts start to bog down, so I speed it up. Often I can happily work whilst listening to people chattering away at 2.7 to 3 times the speed. I can't even imagine. That's too fast. Although if it works for you, like I said, your brain probably adjusts to this over time and you get used to it.
Yeah, I'm just enlightened that so many people are doing this because I know that your time is precious and I always think about that. So now I can just take as much time to say whatever I want because you're sped up anyway.
Yeah, if we speak slowly and just take our time, then for them it'll be normal. We can force it on them. We just have to record an hour and a half long.
Well, Matt Schultz, he wrote in, you might not have known this, but a little while ago it was revealed that TV stations were speeding up TV shows such as Seinfeld to cram in a few more advertisements. I did not know that. I guess I'm not surprised some people do it themselves. My concern is that the jokes will not work as well and the suspense will fall flat because they are carefully timed. Life is about compromise.
Yes.
So true, Matt.
Yes. As my dad once said, everything in moderation. Bill Birmingham from Huntsville, Alabama, thanks us for telling him that he could speed up video. He says, when you mentioned it, I paused the TNT video, installed a video speed control extension, and resumed the video. I found I could play back the video at 1.5 the normal without a problem watching the video. At 2.0, I found it to be a problem for me. I may now look for an app for my Nexus 6P. Yeah, anyone have a good app? I'm trying to think. I mean, for fast playback on the Nexus 6P, I think Pocket Casts does this. I know it does in audio. I don't know about video, but...
Well, yeah, iCatcher was something somebody recommended. Is that on Android?
Oh, I don't believe so. No, I don't believe so. It sounds, yeah, iCatcher kind of sounds like an iOS
I guess it
too.
does. Things that start with I. That's your
pretty
first clue.
Yeah, the first clue.
Finally, Robert Seals wrote on Twitter, if I wanted to watch a 30-minute show during my 15-minute workout, I might watch it 2 times. Of course, I don't work out.
Well, there's the problem right there.
Thanks to everyone. We got tons of emails, lots of responses on Twitter. Thank you so much for enlightening us all on how you watch.
I really enjoy the question of the day. I think it's an awesome inclusion to the show. Too bad we don't have one for today, but we'll work on it for tomorrow. Up next, if your mother ever warned you that looking at your cell phone could cause you to go blind, she might be right. My mother never warned me of this. But first, let's take a minute to thank Atlassian, the sponsor of this episode. Today, nearly anything is possible. And if we can dream it, teams can build it. So how do you bring everyone together to create what's next? How do you create that thing with your team that you need to build? You know, it requires a lot of collaboration, communication across the board. Team up with Atlassian. They're the makers of collaboration software that lets teams work and communicate better together. You can do all sorts of things with Atlassian's products. Assign, track, and manage tasks for any project, no matter how complex. That right there is the clarity of Jira. You can create and share content, organize results, and bring team members up to speed with the flexibility of Confluence. Instant message or video chat with your team from any device. That's the freedom of HipChat. You can test, review, and manage code in real time with the power of Bitbucket. Of course, here at Twit, we use all of these Atlassian programs. Our engineering team is heavily, using Confluence to document equipment, work processes, all that kind of stuff. They're using Jira for managing vendors, organizing our constantly growing pile of tasks, which can get very overwhelming, by the way. So that for sure helps. For everything from planning events to working on serious operational issues, we tie all of our communications together with HipChat. We've got rooms for booking. We've got all sorts of rooms for different things, new screensavers planning, all sorts of communication happening through HipChat. Visit Atlassian.com and you can see how Jira, Confluence, HipChat, and Bitbucket give your team everything you need to organize, to discuss, and complete shared work. Atlassian, helping teams everywhere team up to create what's next. That is Atlassian.com. You should check it out for yourself, and we thank them for their support. TNT's fan of the day is Dennis Opal. That's at Cell0 on Twitter, who says, building a VR entertainment room, watching the TNT episode that named me how I watch TNT, fan of the week, hashtag VRception. That's fan of the day. You don't get the whole week. However, now you could say that you are a 2-timer. So 2 of 7 days. If we keep bringing you on, then you will collectively be a fan of the week. So you can shoot for that, I suppose. But nice. I like it. We are in VR. This is not the first time, by the way. I believe we were in HoloLens at one point, right? So we were in AR there. Mm-hmm. I love the look of it. It looks real. Mm-hmm. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it.
Checking your smartphone in the dark could cause you to go blind temporarily, and only if you're looking at your phone with one eye.
Oh, okay.
So both eyes on the phone, please.
Yes.
Today's New England Journal of Medicine details transient smartphone blindness. It could last 2 months. That's 15-minute increments for 2 months, not 2 months of being blind.
Oh, okay.
Still not so good. 2 women ages 22 and 40 reported temporary vision loss for up to 15 minutes at a time. After MRIs, heart tests, and other medical exams, The Guardian reports that an eye specialist finally diagnosed the problem as a result of looking at their smartphones in the dark, lying on their side in bed with one eye covered. So I guess one eye was adjusting and the other one wasn't.
Yeah. I've done that before, but it just feels weird. Like it's just not right. Looking through one eye and reading. So I understand the desire because you want to lay down.
Right, because otherwise you hold it over your head and then you drop it. That's dangerous,
I've done that too. Yeah. Now what I do every night when I get in bed, I think I've talked about it before. I've got like my 10 minutes of Reddit browsing time and check out the front page. And now what I do is I'm like slightly sitting up. Like not fully sitting up. It's like a recline with the pillow sort of thing. So neither of my eyes are blocked. But I kind of know what this is about. It's strange. It sounds really weird. So basically what they're saying is that the pillow-covered eye adapts to the darkness, of that eye being blocked, and then the phone adapts to the brightness. And then when you take, when you take the phone away and both eyes are open, it's like it's trying to adjust both eyes to the same level, and that ends up adjusting the bright eye down to darkness, and you don't really see anything. I kind of understand what that's about because I have this experience sometimes when I'm looking at printed words on white paper, black words, and I don't know exactly what triggers it, but I'll have situations where the word that I'm looking at directly suddenly goes away and like I can't see it anymore. It becomes a whitewash. And I can see everything in my peripheral vision, but that gets blinded, like that very specific thing. And it only lasts for like maybe a minute or whatever, and then it finally kind of comes back. I don't know what that is. Wow. I don't know if it's related. I just chalk it up to the brain being a crazy thing. Either that or my eyes are about to.
But you did get that eye twitch you
this
were
was
complaining
before.
about
This
too.
was before that.
We should go to the Google symptoms. We should Google those symptoms right now.
And then I was in the hospital with my eye a couple of years ago. So maybe I just have an eye thing.
Yeah.
Maybe my eyes are just screwed.
Well, here's what you need to do. If you want to catch up on technology at night in bed, listen at whatever speed you want. Listen to us. Or you can, I think watching, not reading. If you're watching us, that's also fine too. So put away the Reddit. Just watch and listen to us.
I'm not going to not read Reddit and watch the show that we just did.
Because you already know all this stuff because you were here.
Okay, all right. I thought you were talking to me.
I don't know if you were seeing things or not. Apparently, you weren't necessarily seeing all the words, but you were here.
True. Yes, so do that. And if you want to catch us live instead of at night in bed, TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can also leave us a short voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. And you can find us on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
You can subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. And you said we didn't have a question of the day, but if you want to weigh in on the self-driving car ethics question,
I think that's a good one.
Email us at TNT@twit.tv, or me, Megan, at twit.tv, or tweet at me at Megan Morrone.
Or you can tweet at me at Jason Howell. Sure, I'm there. I'm on Twitter. Do it. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and Greg for the words, and everyone here. Because there are so many people here who help us with this show every single day. And thanks to you for talking tech with us. We will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.